What's going on? Good morning, everybody. So I saw a tweet a few minutes ago. I mean, I don't know what else you call it now. I mean, considering it's X, maybe it's an X post. Shit, I don't know, dude. But while I'm waiting on my piece of equipment to heat up, I figured I'd take the moment out of my day to kind of start on a new venture for myself, and that's I don't know, maybe I wanted to call it like the blue collar economist or something like that. I don't know. Listen, I work blue collar. I like everything about the economy, or as like how like economics work and shit like that. And particularly I like assets and everything like that. So I pay attention to it quite well. But I'm getting off track here, so let me just kind of backtrack this a little bit. So I was reading this post on X that was from whale.guru, which I don't think that is like a well-known publication for. There's Whale Watcher, but there's not. I don't know whale.guru. I think that was like a fake account or something like that, a spin-off account maybe. And what was really weird is that like in this post it was actually giving a personal opinion, and I personally don't like to like follow accounts that like are similar to this that give out personal opinions. I just like go on X and I just like want to see straight up news. That's all I want to see. That's all I have X for, is to like see the latest news right then, right there. And it's the quickest and fastest, most reliable way to get information out these days. But I digress. So on the post it said, wait until a crash similar to that in 2008 to buy a house. Unless you're a millionaire, you have no real reason to purchase a house as of right now. You understand? ? Let me tell you something. We're not going to see a crash like 2008. We're just not. We're not going to see a crash similar to that of 2008, specifically for housings. And let me explain to you why. So the reason why we had the crash of 2008 was specifically around houses, goes all the way back into like the 90s, okay? And from like basically like the mid 90s all the way up to 2008, there was this bubble that was building up, and it was the housing bubble, okay? And what caused the bubble? Well, honestly, the derivatives market and ninja loans. Essentially, like what was happening is that they were letting anybody and everybody who had the idea that they wanted to buy a house, they just let them buy a house. So even if that means that they were subprime credit, which means that like, you know, like they had a credit score below 630, you know, like, hey, if you had a 680, you know, if you like, you coughed on a credit card, you know, you can get a house now, you know, like maybe like 5% down on like $180,000 house, you know, like that's stupid low. Anybody could probably come up with that. Now, here's the thing. Since they were lending these houses out to anybody and everybody, I apologize. What was going on is absolute insanity in like a modern context, when you look at it from a modern context, right? Because you sit there and you think about it, you're like, okay, so they were giving these loans out to anybody and everybody. Okay, well, I mean, that's understandable that, you know, a lot of people file for bankruptcy, but, or, you know, let their houses go back to the bank, but why was the crash as big as it was? Okay, so this is like where ninja loans and the derivatives market kind of come in together, okay? So what happened was that people had no idea how much money was being lent out at all. Because like what would happen is that big companies, big banks, like anybody who was like in the financial world at the time, what they would do is they would just go in, have these banks loan out money to individuals. Their house would go to another bank. It would be packaged and resold with a bunch of other houses to another bank, and it kept on doing that over and over and over again. And eventually nobody knew like how much money was like being lent out, like how much money was being leveraged, how much money was, you know, like where, like nobody knew. And then like people started kind of noticing things and like, you know, I think we're in a bubble. All right, and you're like, no, you're not in a bubble. This is silly. You know, we're doing great. Yada 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 yada. Okay. Well, turns out we was. Everybody realized how much money was being leveraged. They lost it all because like they had no idea what they were doing and they didn't know how much money was they were gambling with. So they lost it all. And that's what caused the crash of 2008. Okay? And then immediately after that, they started kind of building back up. We had the wars over in the Middle East that right at that time period was kind of during its height. And then like in Iraq a little bit different, but yeah, that was like kind of around like a pretty big intensive moment for that period of time. And so it came down, went up, came down, went up, and it took like almost like 2018 for like 10 full years for like the stock market to kind of start swinging back up. The housing market kind of started to swing back up, and then 2019 happened. And I don't know if you guys remember or not, but that was the COVID crash. Okay, so everything shut down. Everything shut down during COVID. Okay, everything shuts down during COVID. Anybody who was able to buy a house, like if like you were able to buy a house and you were able to hold on to it throughout that whole entire deal, you made out pretty good. But for the people who like were working their way to it and then like they lost their job, or they did have a house and then they lost their house, and you start thinking about like, so I mean immediately like they were just recovering from a crash and then immediately came back down again. And so like it's another market crash. It's another what they would, I guess you can call it, a black swan event. And so now they're like, okay, well, we got to get some money for these houses because like, here's the deal. We can't like keep on doing this as it is, or like bank failures will start to happen. And so essentially what happened is that they started getting these companies like, I believe it's Blackstone, not BlackRock, Blackstone, I believe. Anyways, so a bunch of these different companies, REITs, real estate investment companies, what they do is they go in and they buy a bunch of houses and then they put it all into a package. They rent it out to everybody, and then like they'll make their money on putting it into a fund, and then that fund goes into the stock market. It starts tracking up, and that's how people are able to invest in it. Now what happens here is that everybody is not able to purchase at this level, so the prices go up and they stay up. Okay, so here's the deal. What we're seeing now, in my personal opinion, I think we're seeing the new floor. The average median home is like $400,000. Back about 10 years ago, the average median home was about $140,000. So, yeah, the housing market has essentially like 4x'd since, from whenever I was growing up. So what does that mean for everybody else? Well, our wages just haven't caught up. That's the thing. You have to understand that our wages just have not caught up. The average home buyer right now is no shit in their 50s. Because those are the people who can actually afford to buy a home. The difference is in between now and back then is that the people nowadays who can afford a home can barely afford a home. And when I say people who can afford a home now are actually fairly kind of wealthy. All right. And so what does that mean for your housing market? Well, it actually stabilizes it quite a bit. Believe it or not, it actually does. A lot of people don't like the fact that because it kind of screws like people like me and you out of being able to purchase a home. But the reality is that it keeps everything nice and square. It keeps the things kind of nice and flowing around. And that's what makes me believe that we're at a new floor, is that many people want to see a housing crash so they can actually purchase a home. But the reality is that you don't want that. You really don't. If the housing market crashes, then the United States in that time period also crashes. Everything crashes, from gold, silver, everything crashes because everything is all tied to each other. So when the average person can barely afford a home, that's actually a good thing, because, and it's a shit thing, but it's a good thing. as far as like keeping like the economics of the whole entire system stable and flatlined, as far as like the housing market goes. That's why you'll see like things like start to kind of like fluctuate. They'll go like up about like 10%, then kind of come back down. Just here recently, we saw gold and silver go up to its all-time high, and then came crashing down like 14%. The volatility is much higher now, but it has a 10% range. And as long as it's got like a 10% range, either going up or down, you know, like it actually is kind of stable if you really think about it. And yeah, it's high volatility at the time, but at the same point in time, a lot of the things that we're not really realizing is that we're too close to it, and like we're not taking a step back and realizing like, hey, the market is here, but our income is here. And eventually, believe it or not, our income will rise up over time. It's just going to take a little bit for us to get there. You know, I think that's just my personal opinion. I think over time, our incomes will slowly start to rise up and actually meet a fair, good standard of living. But for the time being, we're just about 10 years or 15 years too late as far as like our income stability goes for the average individual person who's looking to purchase a home. Unless you have a significant money down, and then you can purchase a home and then, you know, keep it within like 1/3 of your overall monthly budget, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. You know, like it's not going to hurt anybody. If the stock market crashes, so fucking be it. You know, at least like you're still able to purchase your home regardless, unless like you lose your job or something like that. But like if you know you have a secure job and everything like that, you know, I'm not trying to give anybody financial advice, but I'm just trying to give everybody the idea that housing prices are not going to come down. They're probably never going to come down. I think this is going to be like the new floor. So maybe just go ahead and kind of get that idea wrapped around your head. But hey, the sun's coming up. I got to get into my machine over here. I got to go work and try to buy some assets. Thank you guys for watching today's video. Bye-bye.